galvanizing the private sector to join us in that effort. So whether it's the legislative side, like the actual legislation of Perkins CT, which was focused on vocational education, or whether it's the ability to use the White House to galvanize the private sector, we got over 16 million commitments from the private sector to retrain or reskill workers into the jobs of tomorrow.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of education that you're helped on. Access to STEM and computer science education. So the CT thing you're mentioning, modernizing career and technical education, that's millions of people. The act provided nearly $1.3 billion annually to more than 13 million students to better align the employer needs and all that kind of stuff. Very large scale policies that help a lot of people. It's fascinating.
Education often isn't like the bright, shiny object everyone's running towards. So one of the hard things in politics, when there's something that is good policy, sometimes it has no momentum because it doesn't have a cheerleader. So where are areas of good policy that you can like literally just carry across the finish line? Because people tend to run towards what's the news of the day, sort of to try to address whatever issues being talked about on the front pages of papers. And there's so many issues that need to be addressed. And, education is one of them that's just under prioritized. Human trafficking. That's an issue that I didn't go to the White House thinking I would work on, but you hear a story of a survivor and you can't not want to eradicate one of the greatest evils that the mind can even imagine, the trafficking of people, the exploitation of children. And I think for so many, they assume that this is a problem that doesn't happen on our shores. It's something that you may experience at far-flung destinations across the world, but it's happening there and it's happening here as well. And so through a coalition of people that on both sides of the aisle that I came to trust and to work well with, we were able to get legislation, which the president signed, passed 9 pieces of legislation combating trafficking at home and abroad and digital exploitation of children.
How much of a toll does that take, seeing all the problems in the world at such a large scale, the immensity of it all? Was that hard to walk around with that, just knowing how much suffering there is in the world? As you're trying to help all of it, as you're trying to design government policies to help all of that, it's also a very visceral recognition that there is suffering in the world.
Yeah.
How difficult is that to walk around with?
You feel it intensely. We were just talking about human trafficking. I mean, you don't design these policies in the absence of the input of survivors themselves. So you hear their stories. I remember a woman who was really influential in my thinking, Andrea Hipwell, who she was in college where she was lured out by a guy she thought was a good guy, started dating him. He gets her hooked on drugs, convinces her to drop out of college, and spends the next 5 years selling her. She only got out when she was arrested. And all too often that's happening too, that the victim's being targeted. Not the perpetrator. So we did a lot with DOJ around changing that. And but now she's helping other survivors get skills and job training and the therapeutic interventions they need. But you speak with people like Andrea and so many others. And I mean, you can't not, your heart gets seized by it. And it's both, it's motivating and it's hard. It's really hard.
I was just talking to a brain surgeon. Many of the surgery he has to do, he knows the chances are very low of success. And he says that wears at his armor.
Yeah.
It chips away. It's like only so many times can you do that.
And thank God he's doing it, because I bet you there are a lot of others that don't choose that particular field because of those low success rates.
But you could see the pain in his eyes, like maintaining your humanity while doing all of it. You could see the story, you could see the family that loves that person. Just you feel the immensity of that, and you you feel the heartbreak involved with mortality in that case, and with suffering also in that case, and in general in all these in human trafficking. But even in helping families try to stay afloat, trying to break out or escape poverty, all of that, you get to see those stories of struggle. It's not easy. But the people that really feel the humanity of that, feel the pain of that, are probably the right people to be politicians. But it's probably also why you can't stay in there too long.